Hey guys, TheKamsh here. Today I'm going to be doing a deck tech on Control Warrior. I did one around when GVG came out, and I experimented with the Ysera, which is actually getting played now, which I think is really cool because the Ysera is awesome. But Control Warrior is a deck that definitely is very prevalent on ladder and in tournaments. I've played it a lot, and I think it's important to people to at least know how the deck functions, if not to play it. So I'm going to be doing sort of try to do more of a comprehensive guide, a lot of different matchups, and I'm going to go really in depth with the Mulligan guide on TempoStorm.com, so make sure you check that out. But for now, let's talk about some of the card choices in the deck. So this is a somewhat standard list. I made a few personal choices and I'll explain those, but you may find a pretty similar list in some of the pros' hands, or maybe some of you have a similar or exact or close to exact list like this. So I'm not going to take credit for any innovations or the list in particular, although I did make this this list from scratch, and just sort of using the Control Warrior base. But again, many people have come to similar conclusions. So I'm just going to talk about the deck and try to help you guys play it rather than try to innovate anything super new. So we have the 2 core 1-mana removal spells. We have 2 Execute and 2 Shield Slam. These are very standard in Control Warrior decks. Patron Warrior usually doesn't play Shield Slams, they still play Executes, but basically this is what lets you be such a greedy control deck with such a high curve, is because you have these 1-mana removal spells that are almost kind of unfair in the sense that you get to use very little mana to kill your opponent's creatures and then play your big threats. So we have 2 of each of those. 2 Fiery War Axe, a very core card. It helps you stall against aggro. All weapons trade health for card advantage and board presence in a sense, since you're using the weapon charges to kill opposing creatures, and you can kill multiple creatures with a weapon because it has multiple charges, things like that. But Fiery War Axe is very good because it's good against more aggressive decks, and it kills things with shredders. A lot of different things have 3 healths, and of course it can be combined with some of your other creatures, some of your 1 damage effects, executes, shield slams, etc. to kill opposing creatures. So pretty core card there. Again, lets you be a control deck. Playing 1 of Revenge instead of 1 of Whirlwind, I do think you want some sort of deal 1 damage to everything effect in Control Warrior right now, because there's a lot of hunters, there's a lot of warlocks, and on ladder, especially this early, so you definitely want to be dealing 1 damage to things. And Revenge has the upside on Whirlwind that if you're low on health, you can deal 3 damage to everything, and that's very good against Patron Warrior, since it clears Patrons and Warsong Commander without leaving behind more Patrons. It's very good against Hunter and Zulok, because you get to clear their board once they've damaged you a lot, and it only costs 2 mana, so it can be a full board wipe that only costs 2 mana, and late game you can follow it up with like Shield Maiden, Armor Up, and really stabilize. So we're playing 1 of Revenge for that reason. A lot of people have picked that up, and it's quite good. We have 2 Armorsmith. Also a pretty core card. It really helps us against the aggressive decks, but it's also fine against some of the mid-range and control decks just because it helps us play a grindy long game. Has good stats as a 1/4 because it can clear like Paladin Hero Power, for example, some Shaman Totems. It can apply light pressure and also survive a lot of things, and of course it gives us armor, which helps us get our shield slams off and helps us stay alive long enough against some of the more aggressive decks or things like Combo Druid. We have 2 Cruel Taskmaster. Again, this is a very versatile card because it helps you. It can ping things off, it can damage things for execute, it can buff your own minions to trade off, it can buff your own minions to get damage in, and of course it activates Grommash Hellscream. And it can be used with Acolyte of Pain to draw cards. So it's a very versatile card. It's pretty core, and it helps you do basically anything you want to do on the current board state, which is very powerful. Next we have 1 Shield Block. So Shield Block is the card. A lot of Control Warrior decks play 2. Shield Block is a card that we've cut, and I'm going to explain a little bit why. So the card obviously is great because it gains 5 armor and it draws you a card. So basically, it reduces your deck size by 1 since you're cycling. So it gives you 5 armor and lets you play a 29 card deck for 3 mana. Now cycling is a very good ability. You might think you want to put a lot of cycling effects in your deck for consistency, but the reality is in Hearthstone, where you have 30 card decks, you want to have a good ratio of threats, and you want to have a threat dense deck, and it's really all about board, so you can't spend too much mana doing things like cycling through your deck. You see that almost no decks play Novice Engineer, even though that's 2 mana, just to reduce your deck size by 1 basically, and give you a 1/1. So Shield Block a lot is the same, where you can't just play as many as you want for cycling necessarily. The other effect needs to be important. Well, the 5 armor is great because you can do things like Shield Block and Shield Slam, and it helps you survive against aggro. I feel that with Armor Smiths, Shield Maidens, and the one Shield Block, we're getting enough armor to consistently Shield Slam. And also, against aggro, it's better to develop a board than to just delay 5 damage. So I think we can cut down a shield block to fit in some more threats, as well as revenge and things like that. So I'm happy just playing 1. I think it's fine. It definitely helps against Control Warrior mirrors because you still get the armor without cycling through your deck. So other decks where you're going to fatigue a lot, you fatigue less fast because this doesn't actually give you card advantage, it just cycles. And cycling can be bad, so it's better against things like mill decks too, I guess, if you're seeing any of those. But I think Shield Block is a card that can be cut. You've seen people like Sho cut it in the past to success, so I think that's definitely something that's fine, although many people prefer 2. And I think playing 2 is fine as well. It's really a matter of personal taste. So then we have 2 Acolyte of Pain. One of your main draw mechanics, you can damage it with things like Revenge or Cruel Taskmaster, or popping your Deathbite. And then you just want to draw as many cards off this as you can, and it's a 3-drop as well, so it can kill Paladin, soldiers, aggro things of that nature. And then curving Armor Smith into Acolyte into Deathbite is a really strong combo, and basically is just a source of card advantage for you. We have 1 Big Game Hunter, just because it's extra removal, it's great against other control and mid-range decks. It kills Dr. Boom, and lets you save your shield slams and executes for other things that potentially can't be BGH. So we have 1 of those, since we are a control deck and we do want sort of removal, and it also acts as kind of a tech card. We have 2 Deathbite. Again, I explained why weapons are really important earlier, especially in control decks. And Deathbite is a great one because it has the AoE clear for a board of a bunch of 1 health minions, and it also can activate Grommash Hellscream upon its death rattle. And remember that you can you can make a deal 1 damage to everything by re-equipping another weapon, since the death rattle also triggers when you equip a new weapon when you have an active Deathbite. We have 1 Brawl. Some people prefer 2, but I think 1 is fine in the current metagame. 2 is a lot better if there's a lot of like Druid and things like that, but when Druid recedes, and specifically Ramp Druid, when that recedes, I think 1 Brawl is fine. This is a very powerful card because you can almost always set it up in your favor. Basically you Brawl, and then if you have a Sylvanas out, you just get the last remaining minion, or if you have like a removal spell, you can just Brawl and then remove the last creature. So basically this is going to be a 5-mana board wipe a lot of the time, and it's just your way to regain the board after doing sort of dirtily things like drawing cards, playing Armor Smiths, or armoring up the first couple turns. And late game, it can also, basically it's always going to be if you do it right, it's always going to be a card advantage gaining thing and a board advantage gaining thing, because you're often going to trade many of your opponent's creatures for this 1 card, which is quite a powerful effect. We have 1 Harrison Jones because there's a lot of Patron Warrior, Control Warrior, things of that nature on ladder right now. There's less Rogue, but it's still a great tech card. There's some Paladin. And it generates card advantage, and against other decks it's a 5/4, so it trades, or it kills Belcher without dying immediately. It has to be pinged off after a trade with the Ooze, which is quite strong, so it's fine even if it doesn't get the weapon. So we have this as sort of a threat slash card advantage slash tech card mechanic. We have double Belcher. Belcher's strong against aggro, it's fine against mid-range control as well, it's a good threat, helps us not die to combo Druid, things like that, so Belcher's just a solid all-around card. We have 1 Emperor Thorison. It's very powerful, especially since it can make shield slams and executes cost 0. It can make Grom cost less, so we can combo more there. And it's also a 5/5 for 6, so again, just a decent threat once we've grinded our opponent out of cards and we're digging for threats. Big creature, good effect. It's a lot better if you play it earlier when you have more of a full hand, but it's still a great card either way. We have Double Shield Maiden. Get us armor, help us survive longer against things like Hunter. It's a 5/5, and it also activates Shield Slams. Very common turn 7 play, a Shield Maiden, Shield Slam, whatever their turn 6 or 7 play was. So quite good there. Just a core warrior card as well. And then we have our stream of legendaries. So we have Sylvanas. It's great with Brawl because we get whatever the last minion is, unless there's other death battles on the board. It's fine with Shield Slam because you can like shield block, or if you have enough armor you can Shield Slam your own Sylvanas to steal their minions, to act as sort of a mind control. And it's just a very powerful card that'll often gain you card advantage. We have Baron Geddon, much for the same reason. I love this card because the effect is immediate at the end of your turn, so your opponent can't do anything about it, and it'll often gain you card advantage by killing some of their smaller minions, and then they have to kill your Baron Geddon. And also, it doesn't even need for there to be small minions. You can trade one of your minions up, like you can trade your BGH into like their 5/5, and then play Baron Geddon, and it'll kill the 5/5. So again, very strong card advantage gaining legendary, and it's a threat that they have to deal with afterwards. It's also great against things like Face Hunter, Zulok, Paladin, etc. We then have Dr. Boom. Again, just a great card. This is going to generate card advantage a lot of the time since it makes 3 creatures, 2 of which can explode and kill other creatures. Very powerful card here, and it also draws BGH into this. They might BGH this, and then some of your other more valuable high attack minions will survive. We then have Grom, which is our finisher. It has a lot of burst potential, but also it's just a 4/9 for 8 with charge is very strong, and it grows bigger afterwards. So sometimes we can just use it to clear something smaller and put a threat on the board in the same turn. It doesn't necessarily have to be used as a burst finisher, although that is often how it's used. And so it's a great win condition and a great just threat / removal spell to put on the board. We then have Alexstrasza, which can be used to heal us against an aggro deck, or to set our opponent at 15 to kill him easily with Grom combo, and that's an 8/8 that they have to deal with as well, so quite powerful there. And finally we have Ysera, which is a great threat against some of the mid-ranger control decks, since it generates this card advantage and is very hard to kill. So that is the deck. We're not playing things like Ragnaros or Karn, which we're sometimes seeing in Control Warrior decks. So Ragnaros is kind of bad right now because the game, even more than ever, is all really about board control, and there's a lot of things like Zoo or Patient Warrior. So if you hit not a very important target with Ragnaros, or you hit their face or something like that, and then it gets BGH'd, and most people are playing BGH because of Dr. Boom, then you're just losing the game basically, because you're losing 8 mana worth of tempo, and you're losing board control completely. And so Ragnaros is just not strong enough currently in Control Warrior to be played. They've moved to things like Ysera for that extra card advantage, and because it's much harder to kill. And Karn is a little bit too slow, because even when you play it on 6 mana as a 4/5, the stats are too small to immediately trade up with things, so the incremental advantage it's going to gain you isn't enough, and you're just investing too much mana onto the board to actually do anything. So that's why we're not playing those 2 legendaries that we're sometimes seeing in Control Warrior. And that's the deck, so definitely check out the Mulligan guide as well, since I'll go into more detail on how to mulligan there. And also please check out the gameplay videos where I try to explain some of the mechanics and ins and outs of some of the matchups. That was the deck text, so thank you for watching.